So once again, hello everybody. It's Monday, it's the Deer Park, and it's the Buddha Center. Alright, so let's get started like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. Wherever you are behind your avatar, just get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea, focus on the sound of the bell. Practice your deep listening. Practice concentration. And let's get ready to absorb some Dharma today. You're probably going to get distracted. When you do, I just want you to gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Then there'll be a short pause. I'll do the 3 recitations, and then we'll get on with the talk for today. Give you a moment. Nice posture. Begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So, talk for today. This is about the link between motivation and practice, and how it's an insoluble link. It's always there. We can't separate these two, motivation and practice, at least from a Buddhist viewpoint. Right? So I'm going to start out with something. My teacher was Jim Eubanks sensei. And his teacher was Rugen Fisher sensei. And Rugen Fisher sensei, he made up this, he put together, he didn't make them up, but he put together a list of what he called the rules of life. And some of them were funny, some of them were very poignant, some of them were very strict even. And this particular one was rule number 81, and that's what kind of begins this particular talk. Rule 81 was called the rule of actions. And this is what it says. And by the way, this is actually a quote by Fred Kennedy. And it is this: an action presupposes a motivation, and a motivation presupposes a goal. There are no random or unintended behaviors, but there are many unacknowledged and or unadmitted goals, unquote. Again, that's Fred Kennedy. And Fisher Sensei put these together because he wanted to use them in order to make more clear Buddhist teachings, right? By bringing in contemporary quotes or contemporary ideas so we could see how they mesh and we can be better Buddhists in the West. So with that particular rule in mind, sometimes motivation in relation to goals and desires is misunderstood in Buddhism and kind of particularly Zen Buddhism. We hear instead an emphasis on not desiring, on not seeking, and on not acting. And this emphasis on what is perceived as non-action contributes to the misunderstanding of the link between motivation and practice. This is due to the important Buddhist teaching that overzealously or unnaturally, if you will, desiring, seeking, and acting will lead us to attachment. Absolutely. That a denial of the realities of impermanence and causal conditioning ultimately facilitates a cycle of unsatisfactoriness, discontent, and anguish, or, if you will, suffering. So notice the word overzealously or unnaturally desiring, seeking, and acting. It's kind of where the key is here. A more appropriate view of motivation reveals a categorical difference between not doing something too much or overdoing and not doing it at all. We do indeed need and must value desiring, seeking, and acting in Buddhism, because these are the things that generate, these are the attitudes, these are the ideas that generate our motivation, which is necessary. It's a necessary part of developing both a consistent practice and a sincere practice. And this is one that does work toward alleviating unsatisfactoriness, discontentment, and anguish. If we are appropriately motivated to achieve goals, there is no imperative to make sure that what we do is efficient or successful. If I want to eliminate the monkey mind, but I work toward that goal only half-heartedly and I really don't have any desire to do it, it's just something that I say, well then there is no imperative really to assess or reassess my practice to ensure that the goal of eliminating the monkey mind is being pursued in such a way that it'll actually happen. We know the Buddha, the historical Buddha, Siddhartha, he didn't work in absolutes. He did not say, always do this, never do that. Instead, what he did is he advocated a balance based on basic Buddhist teachings as they relate to the current situation, meaning the current situation you might find yourself in. And that's what we call situational ethics. It is pragmatic or useful and productive to set aside any sense of dogma and then to act as a situation calls for rather than acting from a script. Let's stop here for a moment. When I sit with you guys twice a week and enjoy this, well, I prepare for it I write up a script. Right? I have a script of the things that I want to make sure you guys hear. right? The important stuff. At least what I think is important anyway. But the script isn't all, right? The script gets broken out from because things come up, right? Things are realized that might be said in a better way or a different way or in no way at all. So even at a time like this, I have to look at what the situation calls for as I am offering the Dharma. And likewise, even though most people in modern society tend towards excess as a compensation for unsatisfactoriness, things like more money, more sex, more food, more entertainment, Buddhist teachings inform us to moderate our approach, but they never say eliminate it. The Buddha made clear in the first turning of the Dharma wheel that his paradigm was one of moderation between the extremes of excess and denial. Going back to the script idea, think of the script as the middle path. My other two choices would be stick with the script, never deviate, only read the words off of the paper or the screen. Or my other choice is just do it right off the cuff, right, with no pre-preparation, and maybe mess it up for you guys and say something wrong or inappropriate. It can happen. There's another critical aspect of motivation. A practitioner must ensure that an understanding of impermanence and causal conditioning informs what is desired. And we've talked a lot about impermanence and causal conditioning or causality, dependent origination, whatever you want to call it. So we have to let those ideals inform what we desire, what we seek after, or how we act once we get there. In other words, as we develop goals and we take concerted steps to cultivate various changes within ourselves, which is what we try to do on the path, we must also remember that at each step along the way, that the path we are on is subject to change. Not the goal, the path is subject to change. The path to any sort of transformation we want to make in our life can take unexpected turns dependent on internal and external causal factors. So we can have a goal, and we can certainly have a plan to get there. In fact, we should have a plan to get there. But as Buddhists, we understand that that plan will have to change. Not might have to change, not could have to change. It will have to change. Again, external and internal influences make that so. And taking this to heart, then, one can accept the reality of impermanence and causal conditioning and remain open to the many unforeseeable variables along the way without losing sight of the path. When we come across difficulties as we move towards our goal, like let's say our goal is creating a daily practice, meaning a daily meditation practice, well, we must go with the flow instead of resisting those difficulties. We can use the difficulties to facilitate our continued progress instead of fighting against them. Samuel Beckett has a saying, and now that I see this again, I'm pretty sure somebody brought this up about a week ago or something very similar. Samuel Beckett said, quote, "Try again, fail better," unquote. And this can actually act as a kind of mantra that will strengthen our motivation. Because, we have motivation, we try, and we fail. We can lose our motivation then, right? Failure can cause a loss of that motivation. But if we look at the idea of, okay, next time I'm going to fail better, well, that gives us more motivation to move on. What makes a person a Buddha, as distinct from other enlightened persons that are sometimes called arhants, is that a Buddha discovers and teaches the path to enlightenment. What is crucially important about all Buddhas is they began and ended life as human beings. What they are at this moment, though, hey, it's open to debate. But they began their lives and they ended their lives as human beings. Now, I say they, the only one we really know of is Siddhartha, right? That one we're sure of. He was born and he died, and we know the stuff that he did in between, or at least some of it. According to the early Buddhist tradition, the path blazed by the Buddha is a path available to all human beings who strive in each moment to attain the moral conduct, the mental culture, and the wisdom as taught by the Buddha. Or let's call it as the path is taught by the Buddha. Because the Buddha can't teach us to get these things, moral conduct, mental culture, and wisdom, but he can point to the path. And he can say, there's a good goal right there. This is the path to get to that goal. That path is going to vary on occasion, but the goal will always be there. There's an author, John J. Holder. He has an excellent little book. Let me put this out here because it's a book I think any of you could enjoy and learn from. And the author, it's Early Buddhist Discourses by John J. Holder. And he chose, I think it's 7 different discourses that he has there, and then he goes through a nice commentary about it. And he offers that Siddhartha Gautama was driven by motivation and goals. It is this passion that was a causal factor in him leaving his family to search out experiences that might lead him to answers for these questions that he had. And it allowed him to study and master all of the major spiritual and philosophical schools of his day, and then meet or exceed their knowledge and level of practice. The Buddha had a clear purpose, a clear goal in mind throughout his studies. And that was to understand the origination and termination of human unsatisfactoriness or suffering, dukkha. And once he mastered the available worldviews, he came to realize that a middle way was necessary to resolve unsatisfactoriness. He came to the realization that knowledge mandates responsibility. To the Buddha, one who truly understands the Dharma shares that understanding selflessly and through all his or her attitudes and actions to become an example to others that personal responsibility is a critical component when walking the middle path. In doing this, the Buddha also became a great source of inspiration for others. Me, for example. You guys, for example. There's an author, Daniel Coyle. He has a book called The Talent Code. And he says this quote, where deep practice is a cool, conscious act, ignition is a hot, mysterious burst, an awakening. Where deep practice is an incremental wrapping, ignition works through lightning flashes of image and emotion. Evolution built neural programs that tap into the mind's vast reserves of energy and attention. Where deep practice is all about staggering baby steps. Ignition is about the set of signals and subconscious forces that create our identity. The moments that lead us to say, that is who I want to be. We usually think of passion as an inner quality. But the more I visited hotbeds, especially of really talented groups of people, the more I saw it as something that came first from the outside world, unquote. So he's pointing to this idea that our deep practice often doesn't start with us. It starts from without us. We get motivated by something. This morning I was talking to someone about Basically, what motivated me to start on the Buddhist path. A particular quote from a particular book that I happened to pick up just sprung into my head, and it wedged itself and became that motivation. We can see that Buddhism not only leaves room for understanding of and appreciation for passion or motivation or goal oriented thinking and acting, it requires these things for success. We can't be successful on the path if we don't have some passion for it, if we're not motivated, and if we don't have some sort of goal in mind. We're just not going to succeed. And while we remember that we must be open to change, we do stay focused on our continued practice and development. Continuation doesn't mean permanence, right? Impermanence is always part of the continuation of anything. The earnest cultivation of new behaviors, what Buddhists normally call deep practice, and I think Thich Nhat Hanh is really known for using that term too. But the earnest cultivation of new behaviors is coupled with our positive intention to not only do it, but to do it with excellence. We move through deep practice step by step, and we use our mistakes to inform our next step. Our motivation for practice is to make being a better human being a habit. And since we have some new folks, let me just say, being a better human being does in no way, shape, or form mean be better than the person next to you or a person you went to high school with or anybody else. It means being a better human being than you were the moment before. So our motivation for practice is to make being a better human being a habit, to make excellence in our personal character a habit. All right. Questions, comments?